Welcome back. My name is Nick. I'm here with Kyle. Peckles is the Zero on Instagram. He's a super talented artist. Go check him out. He does all the artwork for our shirts, and he does his own artwork there too. So go tell him hi. And we've been covering so much his dark materials here, from Land of the Dead, The Heartbeats, Mrs. Coulter, John Perry, to Father Gomez, to the Mulefa breakdown. And this one's a special one. It's Kyle's favorite race, dare I say, in the book, the Gallivespians. It's almost something like out of Shakespeare. The Gallivespians. It's like, so Renaissance is with the name. And big difference. Obviously, you can tell we have a shirt freaking designed after them. We're big Gallivespian fans from the books. Huge fans. So we're going to be talking about a lot of their backstory. Kyle's done extensive research. 1, for doing the design. 2, because he loves them. And 3, he wants to share with you guys. So let's jump right into it.
Those are the only 3. That's it. That's it. Okay. So the Gallivespians. All right. So the Gallivespians are one of the many races who hail from their own version of Earth in the multiverse, right? So they are small humanoids who evolved alongside normal-sized humans.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like you or I. So
we kind of get a taste of it too when Will's demon and Lyra's demon go through the world.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Remember, because they talk
that's
about
right. They do go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Anyways,
okay.
keep going.
So, a little bit of their description. So, they're no higher than the width of a man's hand. They are short-lived compared to humans, about 10 years or so,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and die in their prime without entering into what we would consider old age.
Old age.
So, both males and females have spurs on the backs of their heels, which can be dug into the enemy to deliver a paralyzing poison, which causes intense pain for many days or so.
Mm-hmm. And it also has to recharge too, right? It's not like you could just pick. I think you gotta it drains after a while, and it takes a day for it to recharge.
Yes. So if the dose is strong enough, it can kill a victim. But the poison loses its potency with each attack, so it takes a day or so to return to full strength.
Oh, sorry. Did I just read that? Did I just say that from your notes?
Yeah. Okay. But it's all right. It's fine. So yeah, and so they tend to use it sparingly because of that, right? Because of that recharge. So they're typically proud and arrogant by nature, and compensate for their small size with massive egos.
Yeah, big time.
I for some reason, sorry to all you French people out there. I think of the French in that sense.
The Gallivespians.
Yes, I think it's because also there's a title of chevalier, which is French for knight.
True, yeah.
But yeah. So while they seem to possess little subtlety, their small sizes mark them as excellent spies among humans because, they're so small. And they seem to have no means of their own to travel between worlds, relying on portals created by others.
Yep.
Right. So their advanced knowledge of physics suggests they may at least have known of other worlds before being recruited by Azrael. Maybe. Right. So a little bit of their history, actually. So Gallivespians come from a world where big people, also known as long bottoms, that's the name I give them, which are typical humans, and little people, aka short stacks in my vernacular, are the Gallivespians. They're constantly at war. Okay, so humans of their world mostly serve the authority and thus believe them to be agents of the devil, or diabolic in nature, right? And humans tried to exterminate the Gallivespians for many generations, which hints at some sort of crazy protracted genocide. But this persecution led the majority of the Gallivespians to pledge allegiance to Lord Azrael's rebellion, where they serve mainly as spies, right? So a little bit about their customs and their culture. So Gallivespians have many clans. And they have a lot of noble titles. So among them are Lord, Chevalier, which is French for knight, Madame, and Lady, right?
Yeah.
And they breed large dragonfly-like insects as flying steeds, and each clan cultivates a different breed. So they emphasize different characteristics, their coloring or their speed or their aggressiveness, etc., right? And then their Gallivespian agents carry larvae with them, which are kept dormant to be reared into fully grown adults in a short amount of time if they need to, right?
Which happens
And I,
in the book, basically.
yes, yes, and
We
I think
see it happen.
Chevalier Tialis did just that
Hmm.
at some point.
They had two of them. When they were on the ship,
Yep,
and they were like, it has to hatch in time and all this stuff because they had orders to go find Lil or the
yep,
knife bearer and Lyra.
yep. Yep. And then once grown, a dragonfly is ridden until the end of its short life. That sounds kind of sad for the dragonfly, but who knows? Maybe they like it. I don't know.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
then
they seem attached in the book.
yeah, they are pretty close. You know, they share some sort of bond.
I
And then
think
some,
this is crazy. I remember this, but I think she feeds the dragonfly like her own blood in the land of the dead
yeah, that's
to
right,
like
to
keep it
sustain it or
going.
something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's pretty metal, pretty flippin' metal. So some Gallivespians, most notably Lord Roke and Madame Occidentale,
Mm-hmm.
were also known to have ridden birds, though whether this is common is unknown. Right? So now this is kind of like my take on the
Let's do it.
Gallivespians. So
I want this most.
yeah, this is kind of like my derived theme that I kind of get from this. So like with their tiny stature and short lives, it always felt to me like it was a statement about human existence in general, right? So like we pomp and we strut and we think very highly of ourselves, but after all, after all, we are like so small compared to the other forces of the universe, and like
Yeah.
our lifespans are just a drop in the bucket, right?
Yeah.
But like also like a reminder that we're also capable of contributing to something greater than ourselves, right? So like with Gallivespians, we see both the absurdity and nobility that is human existence in general. And I always thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have such a huge part in the books. I mean, literally, they go with Lyra and Will to the land of the dead. They go to the suburbs. They talk to other people's deaths. They try to talk Lyra out of going. They leave part of their soul on the shores of the suburbs of the dead. They go through. I mean, they literally fight till their last breath to save Lyra. It's
Like
really cool.
it's interesting because like it starts out with them just following orders
Yeah.
and like being loyal to their orders, but also along the way there's that plus their connection with Will and Lyra,
Yeah.
like what they've been through together, right?
Yeah.
And you get that sense of like
They're
a
all
bond.
very close when they leave the
Yeah.
land of the dead. They have such a close bond. Like it's crazy because like they're not even trusted at first, which we kind of saw in the show. But there is such a. I mean, it sucks because like she's not trusted and then she leaves, and
Yeah.
it's just like what like there's like this huge like backstory and like how much the kids actually learn from the Gallivespians
Yep.
too, like in the story. So that was a huge bummer. They obviously don't have dragonflies in the show, which is another huge bummer. But they did have lodestone resonators. A little bit different than the way they're described in the book. I
Yeah.
kind of pictured it more like a violin-ish kind of thing
Yes.
because the way
Yeah.
they described it and stuff, and it had its own little neat little case that they kept.
I
with
imagine
them.
it's like a weird stringed theremin, like you know, like yeah.
Yeah, and it's also really cool too, like the whole just how they're able to negotiate with the harpies, and also like how they brought life to the land of the dead too by having the dragonflies, because like everything was so dead, but the dragonflies would jump around and bring like life and thought back into the people of the
That's
land
right.
land of the dead, because
They're like these sparks of color
it was
zipping around.
really
yeah.
cool. Yeah, it was really cool in the way that, like, even though they were all sad, they would look at the dragonfly, Lyra, to the Gallivespians or Will, and they would see the spark of color and almost like gave them hope to keep going and stuff. Like, it's so cool. Their story is so cool. There's a lot to unpack. We did a intense breakdown of the Land of the Dead, Gallivespians, episode breakdowns where we talk about the Gallivespians and what would happen, but it's actually sad that they weren't involved at all. We placed them on somewhere on a ranking system. We're not going to tell you. You got to watch the ranking system, and they're placed there for a reason. And what other major things would you say that were like totally just dropped for the show? I mean,
So I noticed that that Madame Occidentale was not
not
there at all. It was just Lord
Yeah.
Roke. He was just the dude the whole time.
Yeah.
Because she comes in later, I believe, like later on in the third book. to replace Lord Roke because he dies.
I know he does die, and he
Yeah.
dies in the process of saving Mrs. Coulter.
Yeah.
And it's so much more intense in the book because
Oh, yeah.
a witch comes down. Because there was a witch on the Magisterium side that was protecting the thing, and she literally fights Mrs. Coulter, and he like gives his life to kill the witch, basically.
Yeah.
And it's so intense. Like it's like this little dude facing off against a witch. It's like, come on, that's like crazy. But it's so good. It's I'm so bummed. I'm happy we have the books. I highly recommend going back and reading the books, getting the audiobooks. There's so much good from the Gallivespians in the story. I mean, they're probably one of the best parts of the third book.
Also,
for me,
just if I saw a Gallivespian dragonfly rider, I would also be freaked out at first glance because let's remember those dragonflies are the size of, they're described as being the size of seagulls.
they're big.
They're huge by our standards. So I'd be like, go, you know.
Go. But yeah,
Can't just swat that away.
Really, you can't just swat that away. And on that note, and on that bombshell, no. Yeah, so comment down below other questions and stuff you have on the Gallivespians, like directly. That's just like an overview of their culture, who they are, and how they were involved in the story. Obviously, we saw a little bit of it in the show, but it was totally different in the books. 100. That's probably the biggest storyline change of the whole story, because you still got the Malefas, you still kind of got the Emperor Spyglass, you got the angels fighting at the end, you kind of got the Abyss. So you hit all the notes of crazy except for the Gallivespians. Like I'm like, why are you dialing back? But could have been a VFX thing, could have just been a choice to remove them because of choices that were made. And on that note, go to Instagram, follow Kyle Pecos with a 0 on Instagram. He's a super talented artist. He also designed the shirts. If you are fans of the Gallivespians with the dragonflies, be sure to go to AsArt.space to get your shirts, and comment down below and subscribe to get all the updates from our videos. We're going to be covering Dune. We got Severance on the board. We're going to be probably covering The Last of Us and some other shows. Comment down below 2 different shows you would also like us to comment. I should probably make a new poll. Keep an eye out. Maybe a new poll will be up there on our page, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.
Oh, yeah. I want a yellow and green dragonfly with blue eyes.
Dude.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
I can see you writing one of those.